Today we're sharing with you what it takes to fly a small plane down to the Bahamas from a pilot's perspective.
That's right. So my goal is to just create a quick video, the quickest I can, of the most relevant details. So I'm going to cut out a lot of the, I think, kind of unnecessary things like passports and pilot license, things that you're going to fly around, you're going to need to fly around the US. But I want to point to, as a pilot command, you are responsible. So do check out what you actually need. I point you to this book. This is AOPA's Bahamas Chasing Island Dreams book. It's great. Go on to aopa.com and they have a lot of resources to check out there. That being said, this is what 95% of us really are going to need to fly down to the Bahamas. I'll start with pilot and command. What do you need? Number one, you need a restricted radio operator permit. Go to the fcc.gov. Good luck with that because that website is clunky and frustrating, but you'll get through it. I did. Get your restricted radio operator permit and you're done. It's good forever. The other thing, while you're there, your aircraft also needs something. It needs the radio station license. Again, both of them are nominal fees. Get them both while you're on that website. The other thing I will mention, if you are flying someone else's aircraft down there, not registered to you, you'll need a letter of authorization from that owner that it's okay for you to take it. I just wanted to put that out there because I know some people rent or borrow airplanes. That's for the pilot and command. All right, now for the aircraft. Well, you should already have your radio station license. Hopefully you survived that website and got that. So the next up is you need your U.S. Customs Border Patrol annual user decal. That website's a much easier website to handle. Go on to just Google DTOPS, stands for Decal and Transponder Procurement System, DTOPS. Google it, go on there, get your decal. It takes a couple weeks. If you're leaving beforehand, no worries. Just pay I think it's $35 for the year. And as long as you print out your receipt, even if you don't have the decal, you're good. The other thing you need are Coast Guard approved life vests. Go ahead, you want to explain that?
We have a couple different kinds. This is your typical life vest, running about $100. And we also have, for pilot and co-pilot, the Onyx brand, a little more expensive, about $150, but much more comfortable. We do wear ours in flight the entire time on the crossing. So, God forbid something happen, you don't want to waste time trying to fumble, get your kids in life vests or yourself in a life vest. Just always be prepared, have them on, ready to go.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why we always do that. And the other thing I will recommend, it's not required, but picking up a life raft. You could rent them down pretty much anywhere down there in the South Florida area. We got ours from APP Jet Center at Fort Pierce. It's really easy to rent. They got plenty of them down there. They're $50 a day. It's good peace of mind. Keep them close to you, keep them in arm's reach. Don't throw them in the baggage compartment. You're paying all that money. Keep them accessible.
Absolutely.
In case you need them.
Know how to open them, how to use them, because if something happens, you need to be able to get to it and use it.
That's our flight attendant, the persona coming out there.
Safety first.
Yes. And the only other thing I'll mention on the aircraft is the IN numbers. It says to have 12-inch IN numbers, registration numbers, like ours are plenty big. Most aircraft are fine, but you do see some out there with small IN numbers, and that could cause a problem with Customs and Border Patrol. That's it for the aircraft. Now for the fun part, the paperwork stuff. Aircraft departing to and from the United States, you have to submit a manifest with everyone's names on it and aircraft information. How do you do that? eAPIS, E-A-P-I-S. Google it, go to the website, enroll in it, and that's where you will submit that information. 60 minutes before departing the US, 2 hours before coming back, you have to submit one for each of those flights. You also need to go to the Bahamas Customs and Excise Department and download a couple forms, 3 forms, C7A forms for recreational pilots. Those are the kind of the gin deck forms that you need once you get to the Bahamas. And they need 3 of them. Some need 2, some need 1. I would just print out 3. That being said, I'll give you a kind of a good hack, a good recommendation. FlashPass is an app You can download, enroll in. It makes this all so much easier. What it does is it integrates with eAPIS, and you could fill everything out through the app, and it makes it so much easier because, again, eAPIS is a government clunky website. It's kind of hard to use. This, you could take a picture of your passport, it auto-populates it, saves your aircraft information, and it is just more user-friendly. As well as those C7A forms, immigration forms, once you submit your eAPIS or your manifest, you'll get an email back with those forms already populated, already filled out. You print them out, 3 of them, and you take them with you, and you're good to go. There's a lot of functionality in that app as well. It's got hours open and close times of different Customs and Border Patrol offices, phone numbers. So it's just a good app. Did you want to mention anything on that?
Yeah, I was going to touch on the eAPIS government websites. They're not user-friendly and super easy to make a mistake. Those mistakes can cause you $5,000. So I actually reached out to Arturo. He's the owner of the FlashPass app. Super helpful. I cannot say enough nice things about this company. They made the whole process so easy, basically walk you hand in hand through the whole process. I'll drop a link below in the comments and include a promo code. The promo code will give you 90 days free to try it out. It's Renee 2026.
Yeah, it's free. I think it's definitely worth it. And he will, when I enrolled it, I was surprised when he actually texted me. It was like, do you need any help? I actually sent him my manifest and said, hey, can you look this over, make sure I didn't make any mistakes? And he did. So it was a good peace of mind. That's all for the paperwork stuff. Now let's talk about the flight outbound to the Bahamas. We left from Fort Pierce to Marsh Harbor, MYAM. Took about an hour, 20-minute flight. You submitted your paperwork through eAPIS or FlashPass an hour before. If for some reason something's delayed, they don't care too much about the outbound. If you're an hour delayed, they're not going to care. If it's a different day, obviously you need to submit a new eAPIS. But an hour or two, they're not going to care. But you can, if you want to be safe, call that Customs and Border Patrol office and give them an update on your departure time. That being said, now the flight, when you're crossing the ATIS, you need a discrete squawk code. You can do that one of two ways. Either file an IFR flight plan or file a DBFR flight plan, D for defense. You can do either one through ForeFlight. I'm sure Garmin Pilot does the same thing, or call Flight Service Station. The only difference I did was because we had survival gear, that life vest and life raft, I put that on the paperwork. Otherwise, it was exactly the same. If you do depart VFR, you're going to call flight service. You're going to open up your flight plan, get that squawk code before you cross the ATIS. Filing IFR is just any normal IFR flight, normal departure. You take off and you're on your way. Except we're going out over the water, single engine. It's what could go wrong, right? It was a lot of fun, and it's a beautiful flight. We went over at 9,000 feet. Descending into Marsh Harbor, once you get about 7,000, Miami Center is going to want to cut you loose. If for some reason you are IFR, then they could coordinate that with Nassau and get you lower, and you could shoot an approach. Marsh Harbor does have approaches, but more likely with the weather down the Bahamas, cancel and just proceed VFR. 122.8 is their common traffic advisory frequency. It's just like any non-towered airport. There is a lot of jet traffic. Be vigilant, be careful, but honestly, it wasn't difficult at all. We had one jet kind of pass us up. We just made room for him, landed, taxied to Cherokee Aviation. They kind of work hand in hand with the local Customs and Border Department down there in the Bahamas at Marsh Harbor. And it was really a simple experience. They grabbed all our bags, loaded them up, and they said, hey, we'll meet you when you get out of Customs and Immigrations. We went through, showed them our passports, showed them our 37A forms. They stamped them. They give you one or give you two back. One of them is your cruise permit. So from there, if you wanted to continue to fly to other islands, you could. That's your permit. Go anywhere in the Bahamas from there. And remember, you have to go into an airport of entry. Obviously, Marsh Harbor is. There's a ton of them through the Bahamas. But once you get through there, you're free to go and explore. Yeah. All right, so you've been down in the Bahamas, you got a sunburn, you're just had a great time, and now it's time to go back to reality. So what do? First thing you do is you got to call the airport entry Customs and Border Patrol and get clearance for landing back in the U.S. So you need to do that. I think it's 1 hour, at least 1 hour before. I did it the day before. Before you do that, though, you have to submit again a eAPIS, either FlashPass or eAPIS, of your manifest and your trip, your estimated time of departure and arrival, and then call them because then they'll have that paperwork there ready to go. They'll give you clearance. You tell them what time you anticipate arriving. They'll give you initials. Write down those initials, and that's it. I would also at that point ask them what their procedures are at that airport of entry. Do you stay with the airplane, or do they want you to come in? Because I've heard different things. At Fort Pierce, they said, just come on in, grab your bags, come on in. Some places want you to stay at the airport or with the aircraft. So I would just clarify that at that point. Next, show up at the airport. When you check in, they're gonna want an immigration GenDeck form. We didn't have one filled out. We didn't have a printer at the resort. So they just provided one. I filled it out, it was easy. You're gonna pay all your fees. It is hefty, they have some good fees there. It was total for us $335 for our 4 nights. We didn't get any gas there. Once you do that, settle up, give that immigration form. They're gonna stamp the GenDeck and give it back to you. We never used that form again, but I would keep it. Depart. Again, we followed an IFR flight plan. You can do it through ForeFlight or a DBFR flight plan, same way, same thing, going in reverse. You're gonna take off VFR. There's no, at least in Marsh Harbor, there's no tower, so take off VFR. We climbed up going back to 8,000 feet. Once you're at 7,000 feet, contact Miami Center. It was 134.2 was the frequency, but whatever the last frequency you did going in, that's gonna be the frequency going out. Contact them, pick up your IFR clearance to wherever you're going, and it's just the normal IFR procedures you're used to. Once you got your clearance, you're good to go. If you're doing DVFR, then you're gonna have to get a squawk code, and that's all you'll need for that as well. Normal landing into whatever airport of entry, you're gonna ask for clearance to taxi to customs. Someone will be there to marshal you in, and whatever they told you to do the day before, that's what I would do. For us, it was just walk right in. We grabbed our bags, went through customs like any other time you go through customs. We were in and out in probably 5 minutes. And APP was right there to tow our aircraft off where we could just take a break, got some food, and went from there. All in all, it was very simple, seamless. Did you have anything to add?
I think that's about it. But for more tips, tricks, places to go, things to do, follow us. We have a whole Bahamas series where we've documented our entire trip. Totally check it out.
Definitely. And the other thing I would add is, again, this is just kind of me giving out pointers, relevant things. You are the pod in command. Make sure you do your own research, and there is a lot of information, and make sure you do your own research on going down there. But that's pretty much it. Don't be afraid to do it. It's a great time.